Hello, everybody. It's your boy Dre. Real quick before we start this discussion on Octopath 2, as with any of our post-game shows, this will be a full spoiler discussion for Octopath Traveler 2 and probably the original Octopath Traveler because we're going to compare and contrast points about it. So if you haven't played either of those games, do not listen to this podcast. Come back later when you have played those games and listen to us talk about them if you do, please. But if you don't care about spoilers or just want to hear us talk about Octopath Traveler 2, that would be great. We would love to have you, and we are going to start talking about it now.
It's time for fine time.
Hello, RPG people. Hello, role-playing people? Maybe? Is that it?
Party people would have fit here. In
Party
the other
people?
way.
Oh, God. Okay, let's start over. Okay, this never happened. Hello, party people. It's your boy Dre.
Son of a bitch.
Oh, I forgot. Okay, RPGs have parties. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, Steve.
Look, I'm just one of 8 here, all right?
You got to do the Agnia Southern draw. I was one of 8. Standing up on that stage. Okay. Let's. You know what? Fuck it. Since we went there already, let's just talk about that right now. When she said that, I once went on a journey. I was one of 8. Were you just like, oh no? Because
this isn't like, real.
She's not gonna do it. She's not gonna do it. And then at the end, she did it. This is for you, Octopath Traveler.
We really are the Octopath Travelers.
Oh man, and they had so many chances in this game to really say that if they wanted to, but oh man. Yeah, but like, do you like how they flashed like the logo? It didn't even say Octopath Traveler 2. It just said Octopath Traveler, like the main series logo.
Yeah.
It's weird. I guess she could have said, this is for you, Octopath Traveler 2, but, she didn't. Oh, man. Okay, it was a good night, everybody. We're not going to get better than that. Anyway, yeah, let's just we can go through this. There's so much, obviously, when you talk about a JRPG, especially nowadays, that's popular and well budgeted, and there's a lot to it. Obviously, by virtue of the fact you're listening to this, you have probably played the game or at least know about Octopath Traveler to know there's a lot, Steve.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to talk about, Andre, but we have the Octopath Travelers. There's 8 of them, right? The octo means 8. So why don't we fucking start there? Who would you call your main, or who'd you start with anyway?
Anyone who knows me knows that I cannot resist church drama. That is like my favorite thing in media. I love it, whether it's movies, whether it's, Seventh Heaven, which is something I feel like we brought up Seventh Heaven on the show before. Haven't we?
Are we like the third leading Seventh Heaven podcast?
Oh my God.
Let us know in the comments.
Imagine, I'm sorry for anyone out there who actually does this, but imagine a Seventh Heaven, like episode by episode podcast. Can you imagine that shit?
What would that even be? Like Eighth Heaven? Or
Seventh Pod Heaven? You got to fit pod in there somehow, right? That's the cliche. No, I Temenos, of course, gotta go church. I do not regret this decision at all, as he was probably one of the more invaluable party members, I would say, as your healer. I guess you could give jobs to whoever you want eventually, but I would say so, right? Temenos, even if I wasn't quote unquote stuck with him, he would have barely left my party.
Yeah, I ended up taking Particio. He appealed to me in the first 5 seconds of the direct trailer. Maybe it was the hat, yeah, definitely the hat. Maybe it was just how eager he was to do stuff. Also, yes. But I just rolled with it. We're a guy in a hat, and we want to make the world a better place.
You do like a sweet hat from time to time.
I do like a sweet hat from time to time.
I want to inform the viewer of this. You do like the 80s Pac-Man because he wears that hat, the Hanna-Barbera Pac-Man.
I don't wear hats very good myself, but I like them on other people.
Okay, on other things such as Particio.
But then I got Wanderlust and took I'm gonna go swing back into healer talk. I swear, I got Wanderlust and took this ship to the other continent and got Throne and Oswald. And then I got my first roadblock here and thinking I could absolutely take on Throne's second chapter without a healer. Now,
well, how did that work out for you?
If I actually looked at the map instead of doing, oh boy, what an adventure, I could have absolutely scooped up Temenos and then did Throne's second chapter complete with healer. But I did not do this. So I did a whole bunch of grinding, including getting a bunch of scholar licenses along the way, and then we came back and overdid that boss. Then I got Temenos, and then oh boy, it was a lot easier having a healer around after that.
Are you saying that you did Throne Age Chapter 2 with 3 people?
I sure did.
Oh my god. Why? Okay, whatever.
Adventure!
You just told me why. Never mind. So basically for me, I stuck to that Eastern continent for a little bit and before I went to the middle there to get Ochet. But so I started with Temenos, and then the next person I found was Oswald. So I started with 2 magic users. Which was interesting. Typically in any other game, this would be a recipe for disaster, but this game is so well balanced in that regard that it is a viable strategy. I wasn't super hurting for damage, but it definitely was weird to start out with 2 cloths roughing it out there in the winter, the Oswald winter.
Well, with the Temenos in particular, you can give him, I forget what it's called, but You can bop enemies with the staff twice and recover your MP that way, and keep it full.
Yes, you can. But
unlike other games where it's oh, you want to use magic all the time? It costs 5,000 gold for that.
You know what's insane? As an aside about Final Fantasy VII Remake, they are so stingy with the MP. You still got to use ether and stuff. And look, maybe I'm sorry. I'm sure someone out there is going to tell me I've been playing the game wrong or something like that. But it's I'm sorry. When Thundaga costs 14 MP and I have 29, I really don't know what you guys want me to do. But, that's still a thing in modern games. Definitely not in Octopath, except Oswald at the first, man. All those spells cost 14 MP. And, man, he does not have the MP.
Well, he was in jail for a while. You got to...
he reverted back to level 5 while he was in jail. By the way, I love when during anyone's chapter 1, you can just find a peddler around, a shopkeeper in the middle of a dungeon, in the middle of a random town or whatever. He's just there just in case you catastrophically fuck up and ditch your armor or whatever you might do in a early game where you could really fuck yourself over. He's there for you, I guess.
And that's all the chapter 1s too, because you got Casti, the alchemist, the chemist, whatever, the apothecary, and she's. Come on,
I couldn't think of the. Okay, full disclosure, I couldn't think of the name either. I was.
There's a lot of fancy names for classes we call other things in other games. I'm sorry. And they're all dying of a thing in this town. You're our only hope, nice lady. But then right before you get to the end of this cave, there's a guy standing there. Hey, you need a new axe? How about a couple of grapes?
Yeah, he's just there. Cool. So I guess the big thing about Octopath 2 is that it's the day-night cycle, I guess, right? So you have path actions just like the first game, but now you have them at day and night, but also fighting in the daytime and fighting at nighttime have different properties and different enemies, which is cool. That's kind of the big wrinkle to this game's traversal.
Well, yeah, I spent a good chunk of the game with Throne and Temenos before I recruited other people, so you play at night and you boost your stats and then blind them at night. So you had me mugging the shit out of everybody, having way too much shit on my person than I ever needed.
You did a lot of steal.
Lots of steal.
I stole everyone's money with Particio, but I didn't really steal like items too much or anything.
Stealing and mugging. Lots of stealing and shaking down of the enemies.
Yeah, but like, what did you think anyway? Like, is that enough of a wrinkle to be like, okay, it's just 2 different path actions on each person, boo, it's kind of gimmicky, or did you really get to like it?
I thought of it a little bit at first, but then the more I got into it, the more I liked it. The first time around, it felt very reminiscent of Western RPGs like Quest for Glory. I'm really reaching here, so all 3 of you that remember Quest for Glory by Sierra, congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back.
I know the name. That's about it.
Your character basically got good at many different kinds of things if you train them good enough at the things, and it's very similar to that sort of thing here. I found it very fun to go to a new town and, basically start shaking down the NPCs of all the information and items I can get out of them. Yes, it's all variations on the same thing, though, but you can play with that a little bit. Maybe someone's holding on to an item a little too hard for Throne to get, so you just have Oswald walk up to him and go, hand it over, and then have him beat the shit out of him instead to just give him all the items and then stop avoiding with probability after that.
Or if you just need some information, let me do my best impression. I will have answers.
And the lights just shut up.
For being fairly seemingly mild-mannered, Temenos doesn't give a fuck. Like, he really doesn't.
I'm trying to... Well, I had him with the Scholar half the time, and that included Elemental Barrage, and a good chunk of the time when I was doing things, I was just turning that on to see if, any of those were the weaknesses. So it's like, I won't hold back, and he's just smacking him with that.
He won't. He sure won't. I'm the type to prefer less UI elements on a HUD in general, especially if they tell you where to go at all times, like a mini map or something. Like, sometimes I like to turn that stuff off because I just like to explore the environment. I don't really need to look at that, right? If I want to look at it, I'll press the pause button. I'll look at the map, right? But I would say for the first 35 hours, I kept the radar off. But then I realized what a terrible mistake that was when I ran across my first shrine where you get like a secondary like hidden power. And I was like, oh, fucking Christ, those show up on the mini map. Oh, no. God damn. Now I have to retrace like all my steps to see how many of those I missed.
Yeah, Octopath was good at letting you know about that stuff because there was some things in certain spots I definitely would have missed without it, like underneath a bridge or whatever. Stuff that wouldn't have been puzzles or hidden entrances from the perspective of the characters, but they are to us because of the art style.
Yeah. Also, one little visual touch I loved. I don't know when else I'm going to mention this, but I guess it's just going to be now. When you fight on boats, when you're on the water, first of all, when you go into the pier, you just instantly all get on your individual boats, which is like charming enough. But then you fight all on your little boats too, but you go out in front for your turn still. So the boats just kind of shuffle in place like they're like cardboard. It's a strangely funny visual. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, at first I was just all, okay, boats, neat. But then my party just kept getting bigger, and I was recruiting more temporary help with the path actions. So all of them also got boats. And then one time during a battle, this really came to a head when I had Agnia do a dance during one of these boat battles, and the NPC she recruited also shuffled out on a boat, smacked the tambourine once, and then shuffled back out.
So the servants get their own boats too?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I never had any when we were doing boats, but like, yeah, that's pretty good.
So speaking of classes and things, they let you know where pretty much everything is on the map, and there's a handful of hidden classes too. I found the inventor class first. You found the inventor class first, but you didn't use anybody?
No, I didn't use any of the hidden I never found them. I found the inventor class, and then I saw what he wanted me to do, and I was like, well, fuck that shit. I just want to beat the game. That's how deep in the game I was before I found it. So I was just like, I don't want to find these stupid. I don't care that much. Whatever. I'll just be the basic bitch classes. That's fine. So you're going to, if you want to tell me about other classes, you're going to, I mean, go ahead and regale me because I don't know anything about this shit.
Well, firstly, Inventor was broke as shit because I found him fairly early on with the initial 3 I had, and Catapult tore apart small groups on a full BP charge much, much longer than it should have. And then you also got, not only did Partitio get a new cool hat, you also got to keep hearing him say, Catapult, go, 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 over and over again. And then you even had elemental bombs that came later, which broke bosses way faster than they ought to have. But yeah, other than that, I guess the other classes were kind of whatever. You had Arms Master, which was fucking K. The abilities were tied to reforged rusty weapons you may or may not have been finding to that point.
Oh boy. Yeah, see, I don't even know what that is. I can't even tell you if I found a rusty weapon, so I don't know.
You have to get that fixed by the guy who tells you about the Arms Master in the first place. And unfortunately, those weapons aren't as good as other weapons that you start finding towards the end of the game. So Ikari the Warrior is pretty much the only one you can strap that class onto with any real benefit.
Yeah, so does this sound like I missed out on anything, I guess?
I mean, I liked it, but it was pretty much putting a hat on a hat, if you will. Just more warrior on the warrior. I also pulled Conjurer. You got that the same way you did the first one. You have to climb a tower in Hikari's castle town and fight the boss at the end, and real situational stuff with that lets you enchant weapons, and that takes a lot of wind up for your average fight. So I really only got to use that in the last fight. So it was really helpful once.
Yeah, I'm kind of a basic bitch in that regard. I really don't like RPG classes that are too gimmicky that way. I'm sorry to use that word. I don't know, man. Like Dragoon or something like that. No, don't give me that. Just let me be a black mage or something. I don't care. It's fine.
You don't like jumping?
It's gimmicky. It's weird. Well, okay, I'm in the air for how many turns now? I don't know. And then it's just like I come back and they could be dead or not. I don't fucking know. It's not for me, I guess. Was travel banter a thing in the first game? Basically, the Tales of kind of skits, because I don't remember them.
They sure were, and it's just as annoying as the word activate now, because they only happen during chapters mostly, and you really wouldn't know who would talk to who when, just like now. So it was still neat to see the ones you do get to see. Like easily one of the best ones was where Casti insinuates to Partitio that they got naughty and he forgot about it to try to explain how amnesia works.
What?
You didn't see that one? Oh, I bet.
Explain this to me in great detail.
Partitio, the eager guy he is.
I know who Partitio is. Tell me how they boned.
He's just trying to understand how amnesia works, because he's from the Orush town. And Casti, the amnesiac alchemist there, apothecary, one day we'll get this right. She goes through this long, lengthy explanation on how they danced and they had a lot of drinks, and then they got up into some naughty business in their in the inn. And then to which Partitio replies, "Wow, I don't remember any of this." And then she says, "Well, that's amnesia for you."
How did I don't even know where I would have solved such a thing. I guess it always depends on who you have in your party and stuff, right? So it's like, who knows?
It's very dependent on all of that, yeah.
So I guess I never, now that I think about it, I probably never had Casti and Partitio together probably at all. Whereas that was your main character, so you would have done that, yeah.
Come to think of it, you've never seen Casti and Partitio together at the same time, have you?
Yeah, because they're always fucking. By the way, I liked when it was like when you find a new character, it'd be like, take so-and-so along, as if you would ever say no. What the hell happens if you say no? I didn't have the balls to try it, but
I didn't either, but I also appreciate how all the chapter ones were fairly unique in that way, as opposed to the first game where you just showed up with a big ass powered party and then you did their chapter one.
Yeah, it was definitely much more interesting the way they did it in 2, which we'll get to in a little bit. I want to talk combat real quick, though, because I want to know your favorite skills or just favorite things you could do in the game. Because one of my favorites was Hikari's Vengeful Blade, the counter move, because it wasn't just that it was a counter. It does ridiculous damage, like ridiculous. And if it hits for a shield point, no matter what their affinities are. That's crazy. Big damage. Shield point down no matter what, and like counter that's nuts, especially since you could cast it on, pump it up to be like, I have 9 vengeful blades now or whatever. Like that's just crazy talk. It's crazy talk, I tell you.
I mean, yeah, that I liked, and a bit more subtle on my end. I liked how Agnia's dances came with a perk if you had someone with her. Like anytime I can make a buff or recovery of some kind happen without wasting a turn or resources of some kind is, a plus for me. I guess we're since we already skipped to the end of the game once, it won't hurt to do it twice.
Nope.
Andre, I like the Song of Hope, don't you?
Love it. It was great.
The move with the same name, Song of Hope, is not that good.
I never used it.
It takes 32 MP and a full BP charge to make the turn count worth it. All it does is layer on your positive effects for more turns, when all you really have to do is have your people that were already giving you positive effects just do it again. I
can't imagine why you would waste a full BP charge on that. It's just like, that's probably why I never used it. I saw it and I'm like, why? And then didn't use it. I did like that Harvey's lecture actually put people to sleep. I was expecting it to be like some sort of buff for him, but no, it just has sleep on them, which is excellent. One True Magic, though, was not as like OP as I wanted it to be. I wanted that shit to be like a Kamehameha like blast of like, you just killed Frieza or whatever. But no.
I found one True Magic to be fun when you dedicate everyone in your group to making sure he has enough juice for it. So really the only times you can really use it are that last chapter he's in, where I didn't even do the fight properly because he died way too quick. And then the end of the game where Cassie's giving everyone free BP all the time anyway.
With the concoction. See, for a while, I didn't know that she had a concoction that gave people BP. Maybe I just never found the right ingredient or something till later. But once I found it, oh, baby. And I only found like 2 ever in the entire game. So I'm like, I am only using this with a freebie limit break, basically, because otherwise, like, well, that's a perfect segue, right? Speaking of limit breaks or whatever the fuck they're called, audience, latent powers. I forget what they're called. Doesn't matter. They're limit breaks.
I mean, that's how they function, right? And some are more broken than others, but Hikari and Ochette get 3 each.
They sure do.
And Hikari's is changed names after you finish his story, but they don't actually change what any of them do or make them stronger. So they didn't need to be, and we'll get into different things with that later. And on another note, I did start with Particio, and all his does is charge BP. And since he was my main character, I got to hear, "Hoo-wee, I got more grit than I can handle," over and over again. Every time I would use that to jack up his BP.
That's like the most... Giving people BP is maybe the most powerful thing you can do in this game. More than MP, more than anything, honestly.
Well, one of the passive merchant things you can do is he starts off with the full glowy thing that lets you do that.
Yes.
So a good chunk of the time, I'm jacking up his BP only to use it on the catapult or giving it away to someone else with BP donate. So
I gave the secondary class to Ochette as merchant so she could also do that. So on my second turn or whatnot, I could have the fucking shark from the sea just eat everybody every time, because it was the most fucking OP thing you could do. Now, you could only do it once per battle, but that's all you need, baby. You didn't need anything else than that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the optional boss in the sea where you get the shark?
You can capture that?
Yeah, you can capture the shark.
I did not capture the shark.
Yeah, you capture that fucking shark. That is that's better than any of the actual Pokemon that you get in a journey. That shark is incredible.
I caught some very cheap animals there, but we'll get to that later.
I guess besides that though, my favorite limit break, I guess, is Temenos. It's kind of a understated answer, I guess, because what his does is that he just his next turn, whatever it does, it takes away their shield points, no matter what their affinity is, which doesn't sound very exciting. But Steve, I cannot tell you how many times it saved my ass. Like, holy shit.
I was using that shit with Elemental Barrage all the time for like 8+ free hits on shield points all the time.
Right, but if something's like really dire too, like you need these to get these 3 shield points now, or else this boss is going to fuck you like on his very next turn, and you have that in your back pocket, it's just the best. Anyway, though, besides Temenos, how can you argue with let me do my best impression. Tenretsuzan.
Hikari had a lot of moves outside of the limit break that
I mean, like, Tenretsuzan, come on. The first time you did it and you saw the damage, weren't you just like, oh shit, this is the best move in the game? And look, throughout the entire rest of the game, it continued to be that. I finished off the second part of Mugen with the damage was 33,337 HP of a Brand's Blade. It wasn't Tenretsuzan, because look, if you have Brand's Blade, you may as well use it, right? But that was the highest single damage thing I did in the game, was that.
I mean, between the counters and everything, and picking up everything else he can learn across the game from other people, like I was forget it.
In general, though, I guess also, of course, Cassie's concoctions, I already mentioned them, be able to do them for free. So if you only have a couple of some ingredient, like, you don't have to worry about it. And that's great. But in general, I love being able to bend this game to your will. Like, most games involve like really obtuse secrets or like hidden weapons and shit like that. It's like, oh, you can do that if you get this thing over here that you would never know about. If you talk to this person in this town and this and that, then you can do this cool shit. No, Octopath lets you do cool shit by ingenuity. It's like, okay, if I stack this, if I boost them this way, and for the next turn I'll do this and this, it lets you sink into that stuff so well in a way that's natural, and again, not like hidden bullshit. The game just gives it to you, which I just love. You know, there's surely there was a boss or two, I've had this experience, you're just struggling and struggling, then you think to yourself, oh, wait a second, what if I try this lineup? What if I do this? What if I do that? Boom. Like, then within a few turns, you got it. That's like, what the fuck how was this even hard in the first place?
Oh, I felt like I was stream rolling enemies till I was getting to last chapters, and then I needed to walk all the way back to town, swap out to a different character, and then put a lot of emphasis on one character sometimes. Like, I'll really juice up Hikari or really juice up Oswald. And they would really just rip them apart in like you just said, 2 or 3 turns. I'm like, okay, that's the end of that chapter.
Mm-hmm. Since all the characters can use any given attack because you can assign any of the classes to anybody, they had the voice actors obviously do all the voice lines for all the spells, which is great, which is goddamn. Imagine having the money to do that. But like, it was hilarious hearing characters like Oswald go, burn bright, oh sacred flame. Like, you can tell he's doing it through gritted teeth. Like, he doesn't want to be saying this.
You. I always had a hard time figuring out what to just make Casty do, so I just had her be merchant a good chunk of the time. And having her go, I always collect my due, is while shaking down folks for cash, was both the most non-threatening and potentially ominous line read I've heard in a while.
Well, don't you like when you're like in New Delta or something and you're listening, you're snooping on people's like love triangles, and she's just like, thank you. It's like, that was very helpful. Right? And you're hearing about these people's love lives and shit. It's like, okay. Yeah, but speaking of, we've talked a lot about attacks that take away character shield points a lot. Were those in the first game too? I keep forgetting. It's been so long.
There were a handful, but there's a lot more here. Even and across more characters and with a lot less hoops to jump through. Agnia just starts off the gate with a kick that knocks one off.
Yeah, that is not a weak hit. That is a very powerful move.
I mean, they strongly encouraged it from the start. They know, get rid of them SPs.
Yep. The other voice I really liked was Particio because I gave him the thief thing. So hearing Aber, Prince of Pain in his like southern drawl was amazing.
I had a Agnia with the thief class a lot, and it'd be like, Aber, Prince of Darkness.
And when he'd do the darkness, the dark elemental move, he'd just go, Knights a coming. Which is just, oh my God, just excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. I used autoplay for most of the cutscenes. That's not something I do in JRPGs typically. So I actually wanted to know your habit towards that, because a lot of games offer that nowadays. What did you do in Octopath Traveler 2, and what do you do in RPGs in general?
I generally keep voices on, but let the text advance on my own terms when it's applicable in a game like this. But somewhere along the line, I think I accidentally turned on the autoplay and it felt right, so I kind of just left it there.
Right. It felt like the right pace, right? Because I feel like that's the thing. They like when you put other games on autoplay, they take forever to like quote unquote press the X button for you or whatever, right? So it's just like, come on, hurry up. Path actions, though, sometimes with the percentages, I don't know about you, but to me, they felt a little suspect. I felt like sometimes they said like a certain number, but they actually meant 0%.
Well, I mean, sometimes they really were 0%. Like, there's things that you really weren't meant to do at all, but because you were supposed to do them with another character. But yes, exactly what you're talking about. Things where, 70%. I should be able to do that even if I fail once or twice, but I'll be down to my last one more action and you'll be jackasses in town.
They'll look at you funny.
That disappointed, like just Throne being unable. Come on, just give me that little candy. I just want that candy. Give me the candy.
Will you just give me the candy? This is the 5th time I'm asking you. I can't ask you anymore. Okay, just give me the goddamn candy.
Oswald won't mug children, so give me the damn candy.
Flashes the dagger real quick. Give me the candy. Oh boy. Yeah, I just felt like sometimes they were lying to you, and sometimes if they just didn't want you to do something, they wouldn't. Particio's chapter 1 boss, the GIF, I think it was, he died before I could use my limit break. So the game never told me about his limit break, because you know how like during everyone's chapter 1 boss, they tell you about the limit, they have the splash screen come up. That didn't happen to me. So the next battle I got into, like outside of town, that thing popped up, but it still had GIF and like the picture there because they thought I was still fighting him. Which was really funny. And then they told me about his limit break, which I already used. So whatever. By the way, why did GIF build an entire mansion in the middle of an abandoned mine underground? He built a large, like, why would you build a mansion underground?
Well, I'd either say it was there already or it was cheap to build down there. I don't know.
Did he wanted dominion over his like slaves so bad that he needed to build the mansion as a display of power in front of them? Like, you're just asking for it, man. Don't you know how these stories go? They're going to kill you.
Well, they're living in the story, so they don't necessarily know. And if they're merciful enough, maybe they'll hire you on later using their path actions, or not.
I feel like the people in Octopath have definitely read Animal Farm. I'm just saying. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back. We are back. I had some pizza. Did you have anything, Steve?
Yes, I was going over the laws of Octopathia. Apparently, while all octopaths are equal, some octopaths are more equal than others.
Well, that's the case in any society, right? Unfortunately. We will talk about Octopathia, or whatever this world is called in a second. I know it has a name, and I don't care. It's Octopathia. But I wanted to take a moment, or maybe even a few moments here, to talk about the whole HD 2D thing and why this works. Because I think a lot of people see like 2D characters in a 3D environment. And lots of games try to do this, right? Like indie games in particular try to do this with varying results, depending on, what art style and mood they're going for, blah, blah, blah. But the ones Squares makes in this style are really something special, I think. I feel like if you look at Triangle Strategy, that obviously strikes you immediately as like, ooh, right? Versus like if you see, I don't know, something on PS1 like Valkyrie Profile. I understand like, technology was different back then and resolution and whatnot, but do you agree, right?
I mean, I think it's more interesting looking than, oh God, what's that not shitty, but middling indie game they keep trying to sell me? Mercenary Tales or something. It's clearly trying to be somewhere between Ogre Battle and Final Fantasy Tactics.
I thought you were going to say Mercenary Kings. I was like, don't you dare slander tribute games on this podcast.
No. No.
So I want to spend some time talking about why. Please interrupt me a lot with anything you agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. Right. So texture work for me is like the big deal here. They're so carefully crafted because it's like they're 3D objects. They're not just your typical buildings and boulders and stuff like that. They all have like those like pixel dotted fine details, but they're 3D. Think about everything has that look, right? Like crests, torches, emblems, like the town signs and like weapons and stuff like that. They all have that look in 3D somehow, which they can get away with because you're only looking at this game from the one perspective. You're not rotating it like let's say the DS Dragon Quest games, right? You don't have to worry about that.
And I'm glad they haven't been doing that yet. I'm sure they could, and it'd be okay with enough care, but so far I'm glad they're pretty much playing it straight.
I feel like that's the next frontier, though, for an Octopath 3. I feel like that's like the next step.
I'm sure they can do it, and I'm sure it'll be fine, but me and my Super Nintendo loving ass are just having a good time where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give this up yet. I think there's plenty of life here in this style. But yeah, all the carefully crafted textures, I think, are a big part of it. It goes a long way to make any object in the world, 2D or 3D, look like that 2D object that you might remember in your mind, right? Or what you might remember old games looking like, even if they don't actually look like that. Nothing stands out in a way that's like oil and water, like I said, back in the day where they had 2D objects on a 3D background or something. Like, I don't know why my mind always goes to this. I think of those like old Dragon Ball fighters on like PS1. You remember those? It was like these crappy little 2D. Yeah, but then the backgrounds are like ugly ass like polygonal bullshit. But then you have like little shittily animated like 2D Goku, like Kamehamehaing people. It was like really crappy. None of that bullshit.
Not Steve thinking about why Advance Wars 2 Reboot Camp isn't working out in the later chapters. Nope.
Oh, okay. You know what? Next big deal. I'm going to force you to talk about that. I've had enough. You're going to tell the people. I need to know. We need the content. The lighting is crazy, right? The lamps. They cast the characters like pixelated shadow.
They don't even need to, and then they did, but they do.
They do. It's great, isn't it? Like when you get that close to like a light source and it has this big pixelated shadow. I think that's incredible.
They were doing that the first time around. I remember playing the demo with Oh God, Dancer's name.
Oh,
I forget.
the prostitute, right? Shit, I forget her name.
Primrose.
Primrose.
Yeah, she's running away. She's in the sewer. She's casting shadows, and we're standing in front of lanterns. I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome. And it's just for something that I didn't need, but it's here, and it's great.
It's great because, like, I feel like that stuff could be silly or a little too, like, wink, wink, nod, nod. We're trying to be old school, but it doesn't feel that way at all. It feels perfectly correct. Doesn't it? It doesn't feel like, okay, I get it. You guys are doing an old school thing. It's not too much. I think it's just right. All the fake reflections, again, stuff you can get away with because you're only looking at it from like the one exact angle. All those like fake reflections and mirrors and stuff that you can like actually do. Fake ass ray tracing, basically, we'd call it nowadays.
I guess that's what that is, huh?
Yeah, so you get away with it. I like that these games, this is probably just as important as the textures to me. I like that Octopath games have the correct or right amount of animation. The characters move however you want if you move the control stick in that direction, but they only have the 4 cardinal directions that they face, even if you're moving diagonal. Right? They don't have like the 8-way sprites. If that makes any sense to anybody, they don't have like diagonal like running movement, even though you could run that way, which I think is like right, you know?
I feel like the only game where I feel like that didn't feel out of place was Earthbound, of all places, because Ness and company face all 8 directions. And that works in there because places are built that way. on diagonal curves.
Right.
And even Mother 3 goes takes it to the next step by having all the NPCs face in all 8 directions too, if you want them to. But I don't know, whenever I always felt like when an upgraded version of Dragon Quest or something did that, it didn't feel quite right. I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like most old Dragon Quests, you only have 4-way movement, right? I think.
No, I know, but I'm trying to think of something, because Square Enix has tried this before and with different things, and it just didn't feel quite the same.
I think it was a thing of the 16-bit era to try to do that, if you could. You know what I mean? If you could spare it. Like, I don't know, Secret of Mana doesn't do it, right? Or I don't even think Trials of Mana does. And that's perfectly fine. Right. And the Octopath doesn't either. And I think it's perfectly fine. The enemies in battle, right? They sometimes have a couple frames of like standing animation, but for the most part, they're kind of static. And then when they attack you, they do the flash slash mark appears, right? And then you get attacked. They don't actually like go. That's like super Dragon Quest, right? They could have done a lot more because it's 2023, but they kept it. Again, I guess all I'm trying to say is like, all the animations, like what they decided to embellish on and what they didn't, everything feels so cohesive. You never look at anything and go, oh, it feels like they cheaped out on that.
It feels like those games from long ago. It's tricking me into feeling that way, even though it's obviously not that. It feels that way. It feels right.
Sure does. I think the third pillar obviously is like the super heavy post-processing power of Unreal Engine 4, like the deep vignetting, like the sparkly sands and oceans and shit, the depth of field, the near camera blur. I'm not even sure the first one had that. These things tie everything together, you know? And I like that when the sprites get up in the camera, if you will, they have that like N64 2D look to them. They're kind of like washed out and kind of smeary a little bit.
Yeah, I was having a hard time quantifying that till now, but yeah, it is. I wouldn't know what to call that otherwise. Yeah.
I just think it's great. The final thing I want to say is about graphics is that I played this on PS5. It is an absolute fucking sight to behold to play this on PS5 at 4K at 60 frames a second. It looks incredible. If you forsake this game on PS5 for being able to play it on the toilet just to get it on Switch or whatever, you're doing yourself a big disservice. This isn't Mega Man Battle Network Collection or like Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster or something where it doesn't matter. It totally matters in HD 2D. It absolutely does. It's just true. Steve, I know you played it on Switch. I'm not trying to dump. I'm just saying it really does make a difference.
Oh, we know Andre's trying to dump. It's okay, but keep going.
Come on.
Oh, well, firstly, Andre, that it was to play in bed, where I have a few extra hours of game time because the PlayStation doesn't come with me from to room. It's kind of an issue.
I think you wanted to play on the can, as I said earlier, but okay.
Secondly, if I didn't have that kind of convenience, we'd be doing this show for Christmas, not relatively a few months after the game came out. And for 3, I only just got a TV where I could read the damn thing on there. I was about ready to go into opera glasses mode for a good chunk of this on times where I had TV mode on, and right up until I got my new TV, and I'm like, oh god, this is so much better. I could read the text.
I mean, I did play the demo version on Switch just to see it, and it's not bad. Look, if that's all you got, then fine. But if you have a PS5, oh man, and the instant loading on the map, just pick a place and go. No loading at all, man. It is great. Despite me saying that, I'm just going to guess that I spent a lot more time on this game than you. I feel like my hour count is probably...
What is your hour count then?
Oh, you want to do it now? Okay, fine. See, I feel... Now, see, you went first on Shin Megami Tensei 5. Okay, I'll go first. I spent 105 hours on Octopath Traveler 2, Steve, and I'm going to guess, by the way you're looking at me right now, that you spent less than that.
It's funny you say that because the game said I spent 100 hours and 54 minutes.
Woo.
The Switch UI says I spent 105 hours or more.
I think the game is correct because, like, you could say, like, from deaths and retreading your steps and, like, stuff like that. So, okay, you're not far off from me at all. That's interesting. I thought it was going to be another situation for people's reference who hasn't listened to our Shin Megami Tensei 5 podcast. I spent about the same. I spent like 102 hours or something like that on that game, and Steve spent 69. Nice. And I had no idea how he spent that much less time than me.
I don't know either because I felt like it's weird. Both of those games, I felt like I spent a lot of time dicking around.
Yeah. I mean, and you did more dicking around than me in this game because you did the other classes and stuff like that. But I dicked around in other ways, which we'll hear about later. I guess one thing also, and I guess this is true of the first game, one of the best things about I guess both games is the boss encounters, not just literally fighting the bosses, which is, they have like ingenious stuff that they do to you, but the way they look, it's always super exaggerated. Since most of the bosses in this game are not like monsters and stuff, they're like people. They get to this very exaggerated, huge stature when you fight them on the battle screen. Instead of just looking like a regular person, they're huge like a boss and imposing and at a completely different art style, which is, I think we could probably say between the two of us, Steve, maybe our favorite thing graphically about these games that they do.
I would say that's the easiest thing for me to explain about HD2D, about why the whole thing works. I can't sit around and do technical FPS and bloom like Andre can, but I've played a lot of these RPGs over the years, many by Square Enix and many not. And it really feels like that when they do all that. And we discussed on an earlier big deal that big games like Final Fantasy 16 that's coming soon can't really be like this anymore. And this is a great avenue to still have that kind of experience.
Yeah. God, I don't want them to stop making these. I almost want to go piss myself off and buy Triangle Strategy just to support. I want more. Please don't stop. I hope it's not over with like Dragon Quest 3.
I hope that's coming this year.
Man, maybe we'll find out during Summer Games Fest. Haha. Okay, enough tech talk. Let's talk about what you call the world of Octopathia, because I know this continent or world has a name. I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter. It's Octopathia.
Yeah, I know there's Octopathia. That's easier. And what's going on in Octopathia? We watched the Direct back in October, And the direct is showing factories and a railway and a whole lot of other steam-based machinery. So it's very easy to just sit there and go, well, shit, it's the mid-1800s. Especially since it's not super well spread. But then you look at Hikari's kingdom and the other cities there, and I'd say they're at least 200 years behind that.
Well, that looked like easily like what, feudal, a mash of like feudal Japan and China. You know what I mean? Like first century China plus like maybe like 11th, 12th century Japan. It almost seemed like both at the same time.
But then all the taverns adopt the gramophone after Particio invents it with that guy.
I love that you invent the gramophone. You know what my favorite invention in this game? You invent the goddamn department store, basically. Which is so weird.
Not basically, you do invent the department store.
Yeah, it's just like... Shit, are we sure his name wasn't Particio Woolworth or something? Or like Particio Roebuck?
What was his last name? It was something stupid. Yellow Quill.
Was it Yellow Quill?
Yeah.
By the way, after I did Particio's chapter 1, his paw was just sitting right outside the general store, and I like mugged him for his I had Hikari mug him for his power or whatnot. Particio didn't seem to mind at all. He's just laying on the ground, knocked out. It's just whatever. I guess we already had newspapers and stuff. I honestly don't know when newspapers are invented, but whatever.
Well, you had the Gutenberg printing press however long ago, but I'm sure the steam engine expedited all that along. I'm pretty sure there was one of those Rock's long-winded explanations went over that towards the end of the game.
Oh, they were long-winded, all right. Well, he didn't need... did you do... I think it was a side quest where you get to invent the telescope?
No, that was Particio and Oswald's crossing paths where you meet where you're like... You know how you break out of jail and most people really want to get their Coke fix or go to that bar they really like. Oswald goes and meets old colleagues, and this one is like, I've invented the telescope. Yeah, we'll see about that. But I need materials. Yeah, okay. I'll get you your materials.
Okay.
Except he really does invent the telescope, and they're like, oh shit, bad endgame stuff's coming in there. Oh, wasn't this fun, though?
They should have just looked at the moon. It's like, sure would be nice to go there someday.
In a steam-powered rockety ship.
You're right. And then you fight the darkness on the moon.
There's darkness on the moon. Okay, I'll be good.
We also invented daylight savings time for some reason, which I don't know why we did that, but we did.
Why would you do that in a fantasy land? Of all the things to invent.
Yeah, daylight. It was weird. When the game first started, I thought about the etymology of leaves as currency because I just saw the fancy little L, right? And I'm like, and I think I texted you like, what the fuck are they? Like, what is this? Are these like Octopath dollars or something? But leaves, you knew this because you started with Particio, so you knew the term leaves.
Well, yeah, Particio gives you, well, you'll see it eventually anyway. But when I started with Particio, they start off in a pre the game where they adopt silver as the new standard of currency. Got to be a bit more creative than calling it gold, but the silver wasn't so the symbol next to it wasn't exactly denoting silver. Get it? So we were just racking our brains at first at what it was called. There was a handful of people in the prologue that were saying leaves, but I was just writing it off as, end game slang, like how we would say bucks.
Right.
To be dollars, like, okay, this is cute.
Little did you know.
But then I had my first Kate encounter, which, is kind of like a metal slime if you're just listening to us for shits and giggles. And it used a leaf toss attack. Unmistakably, coins were chucked at Particio's head. I couldn't tell. I couldn't fucking believe it. I had to tell somebody. I told Andre. Fucking leaves.
Leaves. I didn't find out till I read about it in Masood's archives, where he went through the history of what like currency was called. Do you have anything to say about Masood's archives, by the way? Like, I read a lot of stuff in there. And it was interesting about the world. I don't know if they gave away any secrets as to where, you could have found this and that if you had paid more attention to that. I mean, who knows? But
Man, I flipped through a lot of it and I found a lot of it interesting, but to me it was a lot like Skyrim where you find books and things where I'm sure it would have been more interesting or whatever, but it's like the Coldlands are called that because it is cold. I'm okay, if I wanted to just read books, you know.
Oh man. What was your favorite town?
Oh, I had a lot of fun in Totohaha and Tropohopo. They're on that far island where Ochet lives.
Somewhere in the South Pacific, they might say.
I mean, I'm trying to not be racist about it, but okay.
Whoa! What are you doing to me right now? Holy shit. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, they're totally not based on Pacific Islanders. Okay, you got me. Jesus fucking Christ. What an accusation.
I don't know. I just thought it was very colorful and packed with packed with character. And then you had that resort town. Yeah, I know resort town's bad, but it's a resort town in a fantasy game. I always like that contrast for some reason, finding the resort town where nobody gives a fuck.
You know what the best resort town of all time is? You know, in Golgo 13, 2008, like the 51 episode series, they had that one place over the ocean in a big cube, in a big glass cube. You remember that one? You remember that shit?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was amazing. I love that he had to do a hit there and shake those people up. That was excellent. Yeah, I was like, how is this thing floating over the ocean? This thing would scare the shit out of me. This doesn't sound like paradise. It sounds like hell, but what do I know? I'd rather just go on an old fashioned cruise. I don't want to be in the glass cube over, the Baltic Sea or something.
Well, once you make your first $10 million, you've been on all the cruise ships. You need a glass cube.
Oh my God, it was so weird. My favorite town was New Delsta. It's by the water. People mind their own business unless they're trying to rob you. There's gambling. It's chill and it's a little dangerous. I love it. That's living to me. That's living, baby. Even better if that jazzy number that they played in that town was like diegetically like in the game, like if it played from like street radios or something like that instead of just like the game music. But still excellent. It reminds me of Trino from Final Fantasy IX. For anyone out there who's played that, it reminded me of Trino.
My headcanon is that it's absolutely playing the night version late at night when you're stumbling home from the tavern and into the wrong brothel or into the casino.
Yeah,
it's absolutely being piped through at a low volume through the sewers or whatever.
Definitely. You have a slums, you have a upper crust area where people think they're high and mighty, but it's like, fuck you. You live in New Delsta, asshole. You're not higher than anybody. Same shit. Yeah.
I mean, okay, this isn't a town, but I'm not going to be able to bring this up anywhere else. Did you go to the House Wellows Manor?
Yes.
It's entirely skippable, but it's just a hair west of Timberin Castle. There's this mansion. You can't get in through the front, so you got to break in through a ladder on the second floor. The place is fucking haunted, Andre.
That took me an embarrassing amount of time to find that ladder. I couldn't find out how to get in there for a while. I just wanted to admit that to the audience.
It's okay, Andre. They didn't really want you in there. The place was fucking haunted. You have to maneuver around big gaps in the floor to find the ghosts, and they just disappear one at a time. There's a handful of cursed gear for you to find, and enemies with big health bars that really don't hit for much, including ones with drop steals for another quest. And then there's another side mission that ends here that starts on a wildly different part of the map. But I think it's just mostly here to fuck with your head and make you think there's more to it. But we don't really have that in games anymore, right? Like everything, we don't have the thing that's just there for the sake of it anymore.
Yeah, you don't get a whole lot of that. Probably because games take so long to make or whatever. And they don't, they kind of just want to make what they absolutely need to make. And I get that to a degree. But it was really cool to find that. I think I found that during the dawn, which made it even weirder.
Oh.
Yeah. So, by the way, speaking of curse gear, did you ever get the accessory that turns the curse into a buff? That shit's crazy. I can't even believe they allow you to do that. That is so fucking overpowered.
I think they only let you have one or two though, so it's
they
not
let
that.
you have two. They let you have two, but still, like, the fact that you even have one is wild. Temenos finds that book. I think it's Temenos, where he reads from it. He says, "First comes the traitor, the Prince of Thieves, the Huntress, the Thunderblade, then the Lady of Grace, the Scholar King, the Charitable, and finally the Flame Bringer." I guess that was supposed to be the 8 of them, but like Vados was just killing whoever seemed to fit that bill. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me unless the whole point of that was Vados completely misunderstood the text and he was just acting.
I think the goal is to get the prominent people in those roles. And apart from Ikari, no one in your group really has any degree of notoriety by the time they get at the time of the start of the game. You stop this reverse chain with Hermes, the dancer, who shows up a number of times in Agnia's story, and when you stop him in the one other guy in Temenos' story. And the only way Agnia would be more popular than Hermes is if you did all of Agnia's story before getting to that point. And I'm sure no one on the game accounted for this, because for all of the improvements over the first game, this is not that kind of game.
No. So it was strange, I guess. I thought, or I could have also thought that they were referring to the first game's characters, which I don't think really anything in this game does outside of like one thing maybe Mint says. But like, I guess that's not really a thing. I don't know how they fit into the timeline, or if it's like a Final Fantasy thing where each game is this completely own different world.
No, this feels completely separate.
Yeah.
Apart from everything that lives in there anyway.
So this crazy weird thing happened to me. I visited the abandoned village where Casti has her, big revelation, right? But I visited that before like that happened, and it's like level 30, and I was like, oh shit, I'm fucking out of here, right? Because I was nowhere close to level 30. But then when I was leaving, this creepy music came on, and there was like a purple dark haze, and then this like big bird attacked me, who wasn't that powerful. I quickly killed it, but then it was daytime again, like nothing happened. All the haze was gone. And weirdness was gone. What the fuck was that? Did that happen to you?
I think they were trying to foreshadow the end of the game or try to give you hints with that, because I ran into a very similar situation you did, but in the desert between the vineyard and Sai, but not a bird. It was a shadowy version of the buffalo, one of those weird buffalo enemies. Same deal. I killed it fairly. It was the only one. I killed it fairly easily, and it became day again. And I was able to actually reproduce this a few times, so I would be able to, evaluate it a little better. You can't steal, collect money, or capture any of these enemies. So I'd say it's mostly to make us start talking about it, like here on the podcast. Hi, Andre.
Hello. Hi.
I mean, there's other stuff like that too. Like there's that girl in Crackridge who just runs off wordlessly and reappears and does the same thing when you return. Like, you can guess that she's supposed to help you find the Cal ruins at the end of the game, but she already plays a big role long before that in Temenos' story, so I don't know why that's a thing.
Yeah. I just thought it was so strange. I thought, like, not that I thought I was unique, like I'm the only one who saw this, but I thought maybe I triggered some sort of very specific, like, oh, if you're in the right place at the right time at the crack of dawn near outside the abandoned village, you're going to see the same. I mean, I guess it could have happened, right? Coincidentally, we could have triggered the same thing at the same time. That was like hard to trigger. I haven't really looked into it, but I imagine it probably happened to many more people than us. All I'm trying to say is that it didn't feel scripted. I feel like you just had to be there at that time.
I am sure someone online has already come up with on-game facts. If you really want this to happen, walk up and down the stairs 50 times with these characters in this order, wearing this exact shit, and then walk out, and then it'll be the spooky time, and you will fight the shadowy hedgehog. And
You know what that reminds me of? Okay, so I'm sure a lot of people know that in Link to the Past, there's like a glitch room or the game crashed room where it sends you into this room where it gives you a person with a real name and there's like a bunch of rupees on the ground. Like, oh, I don't know how you found your way in here, but here's a bunch of stuff and bye. And then you leave the room and then you're like reset. You're like back at the castle or something because the game technically doesn't know what to do. So it throws you to this room. Do you understand what room I'm talking about? This is kind of a known thing now.
Well, yes, that was a contest prize that didn't go all the way.
Oh, is that why the person had a real name?
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget his name. It's something like, I'm so bloody blah. Welcome to my room. Blah, blah, blah. Right. But it wasn't finished.
Right. So I was in the Dark World and I fell down the hole at the top of the pyramid to fight Ganon and I fell into that fucking room. And me and my cousin were like, holy what is this? You know, like we're freaking out. And we get in there. And then, as you said, you know, because you were saying with run up and down the stairs 50 times and blah, blah, blah. We were trying so desperately to retrace our steps and Link to the Past to try to get that room to trigger again. Because it's like every time we tried it again, we just got Ganon. It's like, okay, I went over here, I slashed this bush, I got this, I went up and picked up this rock and threw it, and then I went up the stairs. It's like we were trying to recreate it and we couldn't, because obviously as kids we don't understand how that stuff works. So
it's weird that's how you got to it, because most people get to it through the cemetery in the light world.
Okay, yeah, no,
by doing a bunch of crazy shit.
No, we just went right up the stairs to go fight Ganon in the Dark World, the last boss, and we just fell right into that room.
I'm not saying you didn't, because a lot of crazy things happen in Link to the Past if you do weird shit, but
but I sounded like a crazy person the next day on the playground trying to tell people in fifth or sixth grade, like, hey, I swear to God this happened. They're like, yeah, right.
This American guy has a room with a bunch of rupees in it.
I swear. Moving on. I want to ask you about this because I don't know where I'm going to ask you about this. The Cavern of the Moon and Sun. Did you go in there? I don't know if you have to go in there.
You have to go in there for Throne and Temenos' crossing paths.
Okay.
Eventually, the clues lead you there, and you do have to go in there at some point.
I never thought they would actually do something with the day-night cycle and the fact that you could just switch between them at will until I saw that, and that was crazy. That was so cool. What an inventive idea.
I thought it was inventive too, but then I'm thinking about it in a more literal way. Like, how many days do you spend in there trying to find everything?
No, Temenos just waves his wand and it becomes night. Okay, in the game, like it just happens. I thought that was excellent. I also liked the Cavern of Waters. They also had an enemy called Lord of the Flies because they thought they were slick.
Was that where we had to go fishing, quote unquote?
Man, I don't remember. I feel like this was an optional place, though. I don't feel like you had to go here. Fishing, though?
Not fish. Well, there was this one quest where they needed me to get some kind of fish for a guy's restaurant. And I finally found there's like, okay, we need to get bait from this guy in a cave. And you can buy it off of him, or you can steal it or mug it off of him, whatever. And then you do the boss fight. And I'm trying to think if that was the Lord of the Flies, but it's probably not.
I mean, I honestly don't remember at this point. I just remember the Lord of Flies, and it's like someone thought they were funny. Speaking of people who thinking they were funny, Octopath travelers, Octopuffs, they really thought they were funny.
Okay, Andre, I got to tell you, Harvestella has a fish called the Octopus Traveler. And I'm telling you, now that they've sold millions and millions of copies of all these games, they're going to be working that shit into as much stuff as they could stand.
I mean, it sure feels like it at this rate. They're gonna put that everywhere, almost like it's in a Sonic Team way, right? Because like, think about every like Fantasy Star, they shove in everything. Billy Hatcher, Puyo Puyo, Chows with staffs, magical staffs with Chow on them, like anything they could think of. They'll put in there. The only thing they never reference is like Burning Rangers for some reason, unless I've just never found it. But it's just like, yeah, put it all in. But they're not going to be as self-referential as Namco. No one loves themselves like Namco, I think.
I'm just trying to imagine if Final Fantasy 16 came out and there was this one quest where we got like the Octorobe Traveler equipment or something where it's just, get it? It's a thing for your mage to wear.
The opening cutscene of Final Fantasy 16 is going to say, I once went on a journey. I was one of 8.
Be free.
We'll be right back. Sorry, we lied. We won't be right back because we talked about Octopath Traveler 2 way longer than we were intending to, which is fine, but, podcasts have to be podcast length. So we're going to carry this over to a part 2 fairly soon, sometime in the next few weeks, hopefully. We'll see you again soon. See you next time. Bye.
You've been listening